I'm Joshua Mertens, and I'm with Endurance Aviation. And I'll just like to start off this Bible study with just saying kind of a quick word about who we are as Endurance Aviation. We're Jonathan and I both started this in the midst of kind of a turmoil time in the country and the world going around with the coronavirus. And we wanted to not only have a way to study aviation and to learn from each other, but we also wanted to share our faith. And if any of you watch this, I would just like to share my faith with you, and I'd like to share a man that I highly respect and highly idolize from biblical history, and that man is Daniel. And the reason why I chose Daniel is partly because we get our name Endurance Aviation from him. We get it from the fact that he was a young man taken away from his family, friends, to Babylon, a very adverse area and with adverse conditions. And with that, he basically endured through that time and was ultimately faithful to God in everything that he did. And that's kind of why I wanted to do a study of Daniel, to just kind of highlight his life and what he did and how he was able to just endure and be faithful from his teenage years all the way to the end of his life. And with that, I just wanted to always model my life after him and after his faithfulness, because faith is a very important thing to me and to Jonathan as well. And we just want to always just share our faith and just make sure that people know who we are as Christians and that they know what we stand for. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of give you a little background, and I'm going to go through a really brief synopsis of chapter 1 of Daniel. So chapter 1 of Daniel starts off with Jehoiakim, king of Judah, is not doing great because the emperor of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, is coming down and besieging Jerusalem. Babylon is huge, giant, and the Lord is no longer on the side of the Israelites because they had rebelled against God, they had been worshiping idols, and they had turned their back on God. So God is going to put them under judgment, and through that judgment comes a very evil and very maniacal man and his empire coming to take over Judah, Israel, the southern two tribes of Israel as we know as a whole. So they come on, and it's the third year. So Nebuchadnezzar hasn't been around too long, and he comes in and he takes over Jerusalem. Now with that, he not only takes the vessels of the temple, the gold and all the fine fancery from the temple of God, but he also takes away the young men of Israel, the young royal family, and then the young of the noble. And of these young men are, and I say men, but they're really boys. I mean, they're 13, 14, they're teenagers. They're young. And they're good looking. They have signs of good intelligence. They're not dumb. They're very smart people. And they're kind of really the top and the ruling class of Judah. Babylon at this time comes down and takes basically the best of each nation that they capture and they take over back to Caledonia or Babylon to basically become a part of their own society. And they bring them up through 3 years of training and bring them to be a part of the king's court. Now with that, they have to have training, right? So the chief of the officials takes these boys away and starts putting them into a training program. And this training program involves eating the choice king's food, drinking wine, and 3 years of instruction, of teaching and knowledge, and to grow their bases and to show them the laws of the Babylonians and everything. Well, the young boys, specifically Daniel and 3 others that are going to appear later, aren't so good with the king's choice food and the drinking of wine. And the reason for that is because God forbade it. God wanted them to be clean, and he had certain regulations and certain things that they had to follow. So with that, they asked the official that they could only eat vegetables and drink water. The official, I need to be making, my neck's on the line. I got to make these boys into the men of Babylon, So Daniel basically gave him, like, here, let's do a test. Let's do a 10-day run. We're going to only eat vegetables and drink water. And at the end of 10 days, whoever looks better, us or the other boys, you can let us eat whatever we want. And he agrees. He's like, all right, fine. You're making a big fuss about this. 10 days. We'll see what happens. At the end of the 10 days, because of their faithfulness, God makes them look better and healthier than the others. So, through their faithfulness, God sought them through and basically made them look better. And they, there's obviously health benefits to only drinking water and, vegetables. That's also part of it. But a part of it is that it's God's supernatural forethought, and basically gave them to make them look better, to basically give them their, I'm trying to think of the words here. The point is that God saw them through this trial because they were faithful. And that's kind of the thing that we always see through the Bible, is that God often rewards people for their faithfulness. He doesn't always, and we're going to see that later on as we go through, the fiery furnace. One of the greatest and best verses I've ever read in the Bible, and probably one of my favorites. And it's about faith and how no matter what the outcome is, they're still going to serve God. And that's kind of the whole point, and kind of this thing I just wanted to highlight in, chapter 1, is that God, wants and desires our obedience, and really demands it, because, he created us. Who are we to say that, we can do what we want? No, we need to do what God wants, ultimately, because we're his creation. And as Christians, I believe that, we should obey God in all circumstances. And we should endure, and we should ultimately rely on him for our needs. So that's just kind of something I want to share with you today. And thank you for